Hello, I recently just did the rescore of the Arc Raiders launch trailer. So yeah, check it out.
Doors are closing in 5.
They said the world above had ended. But endings are only for those who forgot how to begin again. So you learn to listen, to move quietly, think fast.
Hello there.
Be ready to change your mind. Up there, the roads are twisted. The rules are gone. But if you are brave enough to wander and seek, who knows what you might find.
Hey, look at this. They need ducks. Come on. Apollo ain't paying enough for that. That's why I was asking for
Okay, so let me show you how I did that. I'm gonna be breaking this down into steps just to kind of show you how my workflow works. So step number 1 is preparation. What I mean by preparation? By preparation, I mean listening to the video from beginning to end. And when I first watched the video, it is completely silent. We don't get any sound information. Just the video just completely silent. So how do we prepare for a video that has no sound? What I first do when I watch a video throughout, from start to finish, right? And I can skip around here, so you don't have to watch the whole thing. But I first start to look for the vibe of the video. But just kind of getting like the vibe, like, so it feels like retro futuristic. I feel like I need to have some synths in here. Just kind of like start brainstorming my instrumentation, what I'm gonna be, what the general vibe of the video is. Is it driving? Is it intense? Is it calming down? Or is it all of those, depending on which part you're on, right? The next thing you gotta do for preparation is kind of like learn a little bit about the company, or I mean, just learn a little bit about what this video is trying to sell. So familiarize yourself with the creator of this video. If it's, for example, if it's the scene of a movie, what is the meaning of the scene? What happened prior to the scene? What's going to happen after the scene? The next thing I do to prepare is I note down here, as you can see, there's a bunch of markers, and I start noting down visual cues that I get that I'm like, oh, this should have a sound. So for example, right here, there's like glitchy kind of static thing that happens right here. So I noted that down, noted with the S effects, and then I think I put click because I wanted like a click sound. And then over here there's a siren, so S effects, siren, and stuff like that. So just going over the video and just kind of noting all that down, so you kind of have an outline of what you're gonna do with the sound effect. So that was step 1, which is preparation. Step 2 is now sound effects. And for sound effects, I do the following. There's 4 things that I follow when creating sound effects. Is my primary sounds, my secondary sounds, my environmental sounds, and my enhancement sounds. So I'm gonna go, because there is a lot of sounds here, a lot of tracks, right? And some of these tracks, you know, they're folders within folders that have more things, which are sounds that are layered. I'm just gonna pick a couple of them, or more than a couple of them, just to showcase kind of what I mean by this primary sounds, secondary sounds, etc., etc. And once you kind of know how I work and how I create these sounds, then you'll know kind of how I did the rest, right? So let me go first, showcase. There is a scene right here. Find it. Okay, so this is the running scene. And if we're looking at this scene, which I called here running scene, here if I open this up, you can see all the elements that are within that scene, or within the sound effects that I did for that scene. So we have this. And let me just solo a couple things that's more than a couple things that's going on here. So first, our primary sound in this scene right here would be our footsteps. The reason why I think this is our primary sound because it's our main subject that we see on the scene, which is this guy right here and this guy right here. And they are the action that they're doing is running. So I needed some footstep sounds, which I created, right? Or got a couple samples for that. Then I cut them up so they line up with kind of the movement that this guy is doing. So it doesn't just sound like footsteps are, they're like happening, but it's not happening aligned to how this guy's actually running, right? We don't want to do that. And yeah, so that is our primary sound, these footsteps right here. These footsteps are a combination of two things, so it's two sounds layered. This one and then this one on top. So they both feel together, they feel more unique. And I kind of wanted a little bit of crunch in there. Secondary sounds would be stuff like what's also happening that we can visually see in the scene, but it's not our main focus. Like these birds up there. So secondary sound is that. Our environmental sound is the sound of our environment. So if I just heard all this stuff, I'm not really sold that I'm there. But now if I add some wind and I add some like cricket noises and bird noises, right? And then for environmental sound, like another thing to consider is that, you know, right here, this cricket sound right here, I don't physically see any crickets, right, within the scene. But we're outside, you know, it's like maybe there's crickets there, you know. So you kind of have to use your imagination of like being like, okay, what can also be here? That's maybe behind the camera or to the sides of the camera or just like not in the camera, but elements that can enhance the scene even more. So one example would be like, say someone was shooting a scene of these two people sitting on a bench, and in this bench so there's two people sitting on the bench and they're in a public place, right? So but the camera is zoomed in right at their faces. If you're smart, you would probably still put the sounds of people chattering around you because you're in a public space, right? Even though the camera doesn't show it. So that is like one example, pretty obvious example of like putting the right sounds of the environment, even if the scene doesn't show it. You kind of just have to use common sense, right? But yeah, so that sound right there kind of takes care of those first three things that I mentioned, which is primary sounds, secondary sounds, and environment sounds. Now there's also enhancement sounds, which is just like the sound of like whooshes or transitions. So for example, right here, I think towards the beginning, right here, transition / wind. So this little hit, right? So that hit is an enhancement. It's like, obviously this scene is not a crazy scene where it would like, you technically be like, oh, it doesn't really require you to put a hit there, right? It's like nothing is being struck or anything like that. If you remember the video from the beginning, it's coming out of this part right here. We have now transitioned into like a new part of the video. So I think of this video in 3 parts. So part 1, the introduction, which is like introducing the world, and it kind of introduces the world pretty aggressive or like pretty intensely, right? You're familiar with the game Arc Raiders. These people the raiders are trying to extract, and the video kind of puts you straight into like the thick of it, of trying to extract as a raider, right? and it's pretty tense and all that stuff. But then it transitions now to the second part of the video, which I call the more chill, like showcasing now the world of Arc Raiders. So this hit is an enhancement to kind of tell you through a sound cue that, hey, we are now transitioning out of that part into a new one. That being said, that's my thought process when making sound and making sound effects. But let's get into some of these sounds and start exploring like how I create some of these sounds. So the way that I like to do my quote-unquote sound design, I like to call this still sound design, like layering sounds, playing with the EQ, playing with reverb, playing with faders to make a sound out of multiple sounds. I personally think that's still sound design. Maybe some people are like, oh, sound design is only when you take a sine wave and you mess with the sine wave from the beginning, and it takes you 4 days and 30 seconds to make a sine wave now sound like a dinosaur roar, right? But it's like, dude, you could have just looked up roars and then maybe pitched them down, added some reverb so the roar really echoes out, and then there you go, you have a dinosaur. And I got there in 30 seconds, right? So yeah, that is kind of how I try to do sound design, right? I'm trying to move fast. I'm not trying to spend 2 days trying to make a sound if someone already made something similar that I can tweak and mangle to make it my own and what I want. So with that being said, one way that I can show you that is there is a scene, this grapple gun right here. So let me show you how I made this grapple gun sound, which is a demonstration of what I just said. So it's a combination of different sounds. This first part of the grapple gun is just like a mechanical noise that I found that actually has even like a retracting kind of sound to it towards the end. That kind of works for this part right here, right? But I'm trying to like sell more, but that in itself didn't feel good enough for me. So I wanted to add a little more character to the sound, right? So then I got the second sound, which turned out to be like a night vision goggles turning on type of sound. That sounds like this. Funny enough, also has like I got really lucky with some of these sounds, how they have like this second part, right? That really works well with the grapple sound. So together they sound like this now. But I still felt like the pulling noise, I wanted to add even more to that sound. So I then found this sled sound, so like a winter sled, like someone sliding down a hill, and I put that to further emphasize that part of like this drone being pulled by the grapple gun. So all those three sound like this. So cool. So that is that one. And yeah, let's see what other sound effects I can showcase. The big spider footsteps is another one of like a combination of sounds. So right here we have this bigger spider right here, and this is one right here. Those are like really faint, like mechanic or metallic noises with some reverb on it. And then this other one right here, which is more like footsteps. They're super quiet. I don't know if you even heard them. I can probably turn those up, honestly. Here. Right. And then we have this right here, step 3, which is just, I think, impact hits. Yeah, so it's like a 909 kick. To put some heft into the steps. It's a pretty menacing creature. And then finally add this sounds that I found with like metallic squeaking. I wanted to kind of have a sound here that demonstrates like how big this creature is, right? It's just bigger than a human. So think how heavy those metal parts would be, right? They're pressing down with some force going into it. So I feel like there would be some kind of like squeak or some like the springs within the mechanism is like working overtime to keep it up, right? But yeah, so that is also the big spider footsteps. And then creating the sound, a lot of like shaping the sound is, as you can see here, is your levels. So playing with your levels, be like, oh, I need a little more of this metal sound, and then I want the squeaks to kind of pop out more. This can take the back seat. Let me add reverb only to this one. Let me EQ some of the stuff in this right here. So just shaping your sound until you get your final one sound, right? You're taking a bunch of sounds to make one sound in theory. So cool. So that's that one. There is another cool one. The biggest spider. The biggest spider is pretty cool. Here towards the end, I go through the spiders because the spiders are the coolest. And it's a combination of sounds. So here, this is more like drone. I wanted first to set the scene, right? I need some ominous sounds. Kind of showcase how grand this spider is, right? And how mighty and ominous and big and scary. And then some scary sounds, which scary 1, 2, and 3 are just growls. I just could have named growls, but again, I kind of name things stupidly and I move fast. A combination of growls, so to add onto that, and then finally this impact sound. And then all those together kind of gives tells you the idea of how scary this like final boss looking spider is, right? So yeah, so those are some of the sound effects, and now you kind of know how I do my sound effects. The rest, I kind of followed my same way of thinking for the rest. So I'm just gonna move on now to the music. So for music part 1, let's look at this first part first. I have the following. And as you can see, only 4 tracks, or 1, 2, 3, only 4 tracks that I created, so 4, or that I physically played, and then 1 drum sample. So pretty simple, right? The reason why I keep it pretty simple is because there's a lot of other parts. There's just so much sound information and frequency information within the sound effects, and also what's going on. And then you gotta think also on top of that, maybe there's gonna be some dialogue added on top of the video. So you want to keep things, you don't want to go too overboard and start putting too many noises, so that you don't leave space for what's the other stuff, right? So you want to keep it simple. Another reason why I don't go too overboard with the creation of the music parts, like I do with, for example, like the productions that I do with an artist who's solely just releasing music to release music, is because we're not aiming to get a #1 Billboard hit with the music that we do for a rescore, right? Our goal for a rescore is to have the music enhance what we're looking at. Is to enhance the video, right? The video is trying to sell you the game. What's gonna sell you the game is usually gonna be the gameplay first, and like maybe like the dialogue. That's what you really want to be paying attention to. At least when I go look for a game trailer, right? I'm going to like, oh, let's see the gameplay, right? I'm not going to like, oh, the new GTA is coming out, let me go hear the music. Maybe some people do, but you know, the majority is not doing that. So it kind of is like a nice feeling, at least for me, because I do both, right? I do this, and I also record artists and produce artists, and it's like a different type of thinking, right? Of like, oh, I need to make a hit, you know, and like, oh, okay, calm down, I just need to support this, right? Support the video, you know. It's like you have help for the video's kind of helping you. Your music is not just like the only thing that is being seen and judged. Using the right sounds and making the music be as good as it can, so that it does the goal of supporting the media. So to do that, I made this first synth right here, which is like a sequencer type sound, or a sequenced sound that I got from this plugin right here, which is the Analog Lab 5 from Arturia, which is just a bundle of like a bunch of analog synthesizers that are like pretty sought after, like the Prophet, the DX7, etc. And usually what I do is I try to find a sound that I like. This asterisk right here means that I messed with the sound within the settings that it has. So I probably brought up brightness, brought up timbre, and whatnot, and I just shaped it to how I wanted it to sound. And as you can see here, once I did that, I'm like still unsatisfied with, and I still feel like I need more. Then my next step is to then go to, I use Sound Toys effect rack. And as you can see here, I'm on the wrong sound. So the right sound is this. So as you can see here in this one, which I also added, you know, effect rack, I added a tremolo. So I was like, oh, this is cool, but I still need a tremolo. I feel like I need a tremolo sound. So as you can see here, we don't have any options of adding tremolo. So I had to go and find it externally with another plugin. And yeah, so that, and then an EQ, taking out some of the lows, boosting some of the mid, adding saturation to the mids is what really makes that sound. Okay, and then I have this drone sound. So a G being held to add texture to the sound. And then this logo chord right here. I call it logo chord is because when we first see Embark Studios kind of pop out. So shout out Embark Studios. Another thing that I want to say is that so I don't get any copyright or anything. This video itself, the video was not created by me. It was created by the team of Embark Studios and whoever they hired to create this lovely video. Another thing that does not belong to me or that I did not have anything to do with is the dialogue that I stripped from the original video, just so I can have like the.
But endings are only for those who forgot how to.
Just so I can also have the dialogue going on with what I make. So I feel like it pieces the video together, right? Having the dialogue within the ad. But anyway, so this right here, this chord, I'm pretty proud of how that came out. It's like a really mean sounding chord, and it sounds really nice. And yeah, so that is just this chord right here, which is a G in the bass, a G singing on top, and then to make up the chord is a C and an E flat. When I find this chord, and when I mean usually just in all my productions, I usually I follow my ear mostly. It's not like I thought of this chord. It's like, oh, you know what? It would sound really cool if I put this chord right here, and I already knew the name of the chord. I was like, this one. No, my process of finding the chord that I want. First, I kind of hear a note that I want to sing, and by I mean sing, it's like the note that I want on top. So that G right there. So I was like, okay, I know that I want this G to be on top. So I played around. I looped this section going into that logo, and I played the G. I'm like, okay, that sounds good. Let's build this chord now. What other note would sound good? And I kind of just like figured out. I was like, oh, my ear is telling me to go to this E flat right here. And I was like, oh, now that I'm here, I'm like, oh, I can put the C, and I'm just following my intuition, following my ear. And usually, most times than not, that works out for me. Whenever my ear does fail me, and I'm like, okay, I can't figure it out by ear, that's usually when I fall back to music theory. That's when I'm like, okay, let's see what I did. It's like, okay, I went to the 1, then I went to the 4. Oh, I know it would sound cool if I go now to a minor 4 and make it sound like all romantic and stuff and yada yada, right? But yeah. So usually I'm following my ear on these things. So lastly, this like synth sparkle sound. Then now this sound is just again another one of the synthesizers from that plugin, and then an effect rack that has tremolo, and I think a filter that's making it bounce like that, and it has that movement, and then all together. Cool, so that's music part 1. Now moving along to music part 2. The reason why these things are in parts is because the vibe of each part really changes, because the video kind of changes. So right now here the vibe is more calm. So yeah, so how did I do this part? So one thing that I like to give myself is my first step in making an EU part or making music or just starting something from fresh is I like to find a cool sound. That's like my objective number 1 is like find cool sound. The reason why I give myself objectives like that is because if I was just, for example, when I first heard this part of the scene, it was like this,
They said the world above had ended.
right? Or I mean, I didn't even have, when I was first doing it, I didn't even have dialogue, so I just had this. So it can be really overwhelming to just like see something so bare, and so like that you start overthinking and you're like, oh my god, what do I do? Maybe you get overwhelmed because there's so much things you can do. There's so many different routes that you can take and stuff like that. So I kind of like to give myself mini goals or like little goals to kind of propel me along. And usually my first goal when making music is always like, okay, find the cool sound. And 9 times out of 10, when I find a cool sound, that sound is already inspiring me to now record the next sound, or I already have a new sound in my head. Because now I'm kind of like, oh, this sound is so cool, and as I'm playing it, I'm like, oh, now I hear another thing in my head, and I hear a melody, and I hear with this sound, I'm like, oh, it needs to be a bass. There's a bass line, and the bass line is punchy and stuff like that. So it propels you along, right? So the first sound that I found was this main synth sound right here. Oh, and another piece of advice, because I've been a big victim to this, is that when you're scrolling through, for example, that sound library or this analog lab thing, right? It has so many presets, right, that you can choose from, that it can be overwhelming. And sometimes you do find a cool sound and you're like, oh my god, this one's so cool, but maybe I'll find one better, and then maybe I'll find one better, and then you find a better one, and you're like, oh, I did find one better, so maybe I can find even one that's even more better. And then it just like leads to this never-ending cycle of like scrolling sounds, and then it's like 4 a.m. and you didn't do anything. So it's just like my thought process is like, if I found something and I like it, that's the one. I'm not gonna overthink it, right? There's always gonna be a tomorrow. I'll always find a new sound for the next day, and then that'll be my favorite sound for the day, and I'll record that sound that day. But this day I'm choosing this one, and that is it. So this is the sound that I chose. So I chose that one because it felt really kind of hopeful, and it had this like mystical sense to it. Again, this is the scene when we're now introducing the world of our creators. And this world has a lot of like mystique to it, right? It has there's people who are still living underground despite the fact that there's a bunch of robots up above, and there's still hope, right? There's still camaraderie, there's still community. So I wanted to kind of give a sense of hope. I feel like people are still here, people are still alive, people are still fighting to survive in this world and to maybe overtake the world above again, which I don't know if that's the case. I mean, I know some of the lore, but not all the lore. My roommate is really obsessed with this game, so he tells me a little bit about it. But yeah, so that's the sound I wanted because of those things. And then I just added bass sounds. Right, to just fill that low end information. And then once I did that, I could kind of already hear, like I said, one sound leads me to another. I started being able to hear a melody in my head, which was this melody right here. And that melody, then I just made 2 more, panned them left and right just to make it sound bigger. And as you can see here for that melody, what we have, one thing that I wanted to note is that I was pretty aggressive with cutting with the EQ and cutting the frequencies. So I cut from 500 pretty much and down. And the reason why I cut all that is because I did a trick that I was taught by a really good friend of mine and a friend, mentor, and a great person. His name is Tim. Tim works he's a recording engineer, and he's working at this studio called Bear Creek in Woodinville. So if you're an artist, you should definitely go work with him, but only after you work with me. That is the requirement. Sorry, Tim. I'll give him to you after. You already have too many. the trick that he told me is to pretty much, once you have a sound, right, you kind of bring in a low cut, right? So bring in a low cut, and then start bringing up your low cut gradually until you start to miss the sound. I brought it all the way up, all the way up here, and then I think once I got to like 801k, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to miss how it sounded now. It's starting to sound worse now, right? The reason why we do this is because now we have the sound, and like it's living now in its perfect space, right? It's serving its purpose, and the frequency, the other frequencies that it had that was taking up space and fighting with the bass, with the drums, with yada yada, whatever else, is now not in the way, which cleans up your mix at the end of the day. So we're now kind of coming out of this part into now what would be music part 3, which is the part also like the third part of the video. If I'm breaking it up into sections, right? The intro section, where it like puts you into the world in a pretty intense situation. Then it shows the world in a more calm manner. And now finally the third section, which is kind of just like intense. It's just all intensity, right? It's just like now you're in this world and you're fighting and battles, and so we're about to now transition into that part, and we're coming out of a part that's pretty laid back, right? So to get out of that, we need to, oh sorry, these were muted. We need to bring back the energy, and I just chose to do like a classic kind of like EDM, kind of like rising, bring up the energy with like a kick going bum 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 bum, and then an uplifter, which is just like a sound that goes and a riser. So all those three together sound like this. Right, so that is music part 2. Okay, so now coming out of that, we're gonna go into music part 3, which is now a little more intense. So it goes like this. Cool, so that is that part. For that part, I just want to, my thought process was like, okay, it's like packed action all the way till the end, right? So I need the song to be driving, and the song to be intense, and the song to be sound a little, I want it to sound a little badass, right? Because you're this like raider fighting on top, you know. Everybody wants to feel like the badass when playing the game, like a video game or anything, right? So the song had to reflect that. So let's go over those sounds. Let's start with what I started with first, which is the drums. I just found like a drum sample that inspired me to like again propelled me to go forward with the creation of this track. The drums by themselves sounded like this. Alright, let me just play the drums. So that's just kind of like coming out the sample, and like after me pulling on the fader quite a bit. But I felt like the drums were a little too dark sounding, so I needed to kind of revive the sound. So I drag an EQ. I brought up the mids. I mean, I brought everything up, so a tiny bit of the lows, a little bit more of the mids, and a little more of the highs, and added saturation to everything. And then just adding that makes it go from this to that. So right, it really pushes the sound forward. Feels more present now, more in our faces. And then now after that, I was like, okay, now they're sounding better. Let's now make them sound like shit in a good way. So I saturated them to all hell and smashed the drums so they sound like this. So I was going for like a really kind of like industrial sound, you know, like really just blown out. I was like, this is sounding good. Let me make it sound doo-doo. But as long as you're trying to make it like that on purpose, then that's okay. If you're not trying to make it sound bad on purpose, then it's a problem. If you are, then it's okay. Carry on. So that is the sound of the drums. Right. Next up, I have the main synth here. It sounds like this. The synth. So that synth in combination with this synth right here. This one's kind of taking the care of the low end information. And again, you guys know how I find the sounds. I'm literally using that Analog Lab plugin for all this, right? Because it's like it just has so many options, right? Because it's a combination of all these old analog synthesizers. Like, think if you were like in a studio room and you had all these synthesizers around you. That's all you need, really. But yeah, so those two are kind of like our main sound, right? They're like if we're playing chords, if I was strumming some chords, this would be like our chords, even though they're not chords, they're just one sound. You know what I'm trying to say. Cool. So next up, we have now all these sounds right here. So let's go over these two right here, which are just like staccato, kind of like texture sounds, so you can really hear them. Let me just. Alright, so mostly just for texture, just to add give more excitement to what's going on. The next thing we have is this lead synth sound right here. That kind of blends more with our main synth sound. So again, it just kind of brings it brings more excitement to the original sound. And then there are another lead synth. This one is like more of our lead because it's the one that actually kind of stands out. There's this playful little melody that I kind of came up with. Switches, varies from time to time, but for the most part, it's the same. And then finally, once right here, so these are left and right. So this is left, this is right on the stereo field. This drops out, and then this takes over. And it's just another playful, like, rhythmic sound that's bam bam ba-dam bam, just going on with this synth right here. And again, this is just it was just a matter of once I found like one sound, it propelled me to the next one, then it propelled me to the next one until I felt content with what I had and be like, okay, this is enough. If I keep going now, then I'm going overboard. So cool. So that is that right there. Solo everything. Now you guys pretty much heard everything. And then a couple of swells here, just like a riser here and there, but for the most part, that's it for this part right here. And then it goes into, you know, the big spider happens. Then we get this really dirty sounding, what a dirty boy, sounding sound. That is just me playing a C note on this MIDI keyboard and just messing around with the modulation wheel. Just going up and down, or like messing with the pitch, so it gets that slide sound. Really kind of nails down like that industrial, like heavy hitting sound that I wanted. It's like really badass sounding. And then finally coming out of that, just the end, what I call the end words, and then they line up with the hits when they actually come out, and that is a combination of sounds layered on top of each other to create a new sound. So that is the first part, the second part, third part is this, And all together it sounds like this. Nice. And then these hits right here. So these two are just I believe like kicks, or yeah, like cinematic hits. And then so it's not completely quiet, just this vinyl crackle to go along with it. All together it sounds like this. Nice. And that's pretty much it, because part 4 is just part 3, just like the main part of part 3, but just now going into, so here on the main on the group channel, so all these here are going to this group, and then on the track here I have it so that all those sounds are going through this like telephone EQ, and then just through some reverb as well, some plate reverb, so that it sounds like this. So it's like the same sound, right? But now that sound feels like it's coming from another room, and distant, which I think that sounds pretty. It's like a cool touch to go along with like just revisiting the song that was going on when everything was crazy, but now like these guys being like laughing about.
Hey, look at this. They need ducks. Come on. Apollo ain't paying enough for this. That's why I was asking for this.
That's it, and that is how I created this this rescore. So if you liked kind of hearing how I work and getting some insights to my thought process when making some of these videos, make sure just to follow along. I'll be doing more videos like this. I'll be doing more rescores for like shorter videos, like 30-second videos, 30-second ads, maybe to scenes of a film or a TV show and stuff like that. So yeah, and thank you for watching. See you hopefully next time.